Hi again, this is Mel, and this is How We Homeschool. This is going to be number 4 in our 5 video series on the different homeschooling styles. And homeschooling method number 1 is classical, number 2 is Charlotte Mason, number 3 is Maria Montessori, and number 4 is going to be school at home. So this approach is similar to what a lot of people have experienced through the public schools when the shelter at place orders were happening. So essentially, it uses a complete set of curriculum that's already paced out for you or for your children according to whatever grade level they're in. And this is actually can be a little bit flexible if you are already homeschooling, because you're not necessarily locked into what your direct school system is already doing. So there are a few different ones that you can choose from. You can buy a curriculum, or you can link up via a virtual school, depending on what's available in your area or whatever your preference is. But all of this is generally to say that it's going to be the most similar in terms of what you already experienced in the school system, and then you're just implementing that at home. So the general idea, very similar to a brick and mortar school. Your job as a parent is essentially going to be making sure that your child shows up, and you assign and implement whatever is already in the curriculum for you. So that eliminates a lot of the guesswork, but there is a little bit of flexibility in terms of you get to decide whatever method you want to sign up for. You just have to do the research in terms of, what are your preferences and what curriculum are they using, what's the schedule going to look like, that kind of thing. So this can appeal to people who are really hesitant to deviate from conventional school methods. So there's this sort of ease of access, I guess I would say. It's very formulaic in terms of making sure that the parents and the children kind of understand and are already going to be on the same page in terms of how to implement it very easily. That can be really helpful, honestly, if you're planning only to homeschool temporarily, meaning you maybe decided to take this year off because of whatever situation, but you're thinking of sending your kids back relatively soon. Or if you are doubtful about your ability to teach your child effectively without that structure already in place, meaning you're afraid to let things get too lax or too flexible because you think it will be detrimental to your children. It can also be really helpful to keep the formal standards of the curricula in case you live in a state that has like mandatory reporting or assessment at the end of each year or at the end of each quarter, depending on where you are, because these things are just so already regimented and straightforward. It's just an ease of access that you can't necessarily match if you're doing like an unschooling method, for example. Now, the drawback to this method is that it is a significantly lower level of flexibility and freedom in terms of like deviating from the curriculum, taking extra time to explore areas of interest, or helping children that struggle with a particular subject or with a particular learning style. It's going to be a little more difficult to deviate in that way. It's also on the more expensive end of the spectrum, or it can be, I guess I should say, because you are typically going to be, again, buying like a full boxed curriculum or signing up for a subscription type service, because you're essentially paying for school that would normally be free unless you're signing up for this through your local public school, in which case you're not actually homeschooling. Okay, so that expensive aspect can be problematic, similar to what we talked about in classical curriculum, where it contributes to that feeling of being locked in to a particular curriculum. And it can sometimes lead to a certain amount of burnout before the end of the school year, because you may find it really difficult to keep up with the schedule or to recreate a school environment in your own home, because home isn't school and it's kind of not meant to be. In fact, if you are homeschooling rather than following your school's curriculum at home, you gain back a lot of that flexibility. You can say, no, we're just going to take a break right now. And that is okay. But the structure can just sort of make it awkward to implement other activities or field trips or deviate from the curriculum in general. Okay, so that is schooling at home in a nutshell. That's number 4, and we will be back in our next video with homeschooling style number 5, which is unschooling. All right, thanks. This is Mel, and this is how we homeschool.